association with Matero. Maybe let me try with Matero. And so I applied formally, and when the president learned of it, he said, no, you are serving in South Africa. You've just done 1 year, serve in that position. So I had to withdraw my application. And
Take leave.
no, so that I remain as High Commissioner, not pursue Matero. So in the end, I didn't apply for Matero for those reasons. So when 2021 came, I said, no, apa, chibe, nomba, nala ingila mushituyu. And Lorenzo, I did a letter of resignation from Ethiopia. This was 2020, December. I called my staff, I briefed them, I said, I've done this, and I said, I think there'll be a new ambassador that will be appointed to serve you. But it's my decision, I'm going to pursue politics. This was prompted by a letter, by a circular by the Secretary to Cabinet, Dr. Simon Miti, who had said whoever wishes to participate in the upcoming 2021 general elections should resign their position. Of course, that position was not legal. It was not supported by the law or the Constitution. However, as a law-abiding citizen and by regulations that remain unchallenged, I said I'll comply. And that's how I filed in my letter of resignation and took it to State House. Again, my resignation was declined. Iwe muntu iwe fyaba politics ifuate mwafyanshi kabombele charoko kwa Addis Ababa. So I returned to Addis Ababa, told my staff that, colleagues, my to go into politics has been declined, so let's just get to work. And I was working until, I think, towards the end of May 2021, 6 months later, when the head of state, again called me that I could help with just realignment of media and government communication. I'm a journalist by profession, I'm a writer. I have been permanent secretary of Information and Broadcasting Services. So it's in that light that, he found it prudent that I could work with my colleagues from government media, see how we could resolve their communication crisis. Communication for government is extremely difficult. You've seen how this new government, because it's very difficult. Even to communicate your successes against the backlash of citizens is a specialized process, yeah. And many governments struggle with that. You can trace the difficulties of the Patriotic Front is associated with its poor media communication, where it allowed perceptions against it to get established. That this party is violent, this party is corrupt, this party is... Those perceptions, whether true or not, got established in the minds of our people.
Which should have not been the case.
Of course, if you have an efficient communication system, that should not get established. Yeah.
Okay. All right, now let me move on to our next point of discussion for today's program. Now let's look at performance-driven points, talking points, 3 to 11. The first one, how would you rate the performance of the UPND government on a scale of 1 to 10? 4 months in office.
Well, they'll be very lucky if they scored above 4 out of 10. I think they've taken long to settle. The head of state took long to finish his appointments. To date, he still hasn't finished, I think, even most of the appointments. Sorry, we want to bakwalisa nachilano kwa menshi.
Yeah, it's pretty hot.
Kuliba abantu abaletumfwa abashiletamba mufikope via social media. So I was taking some water just to freshen myself. So I'll rate them at 4 out of 10. Number one, below average. Number one, the head of state took long to finish his appointment, and then therefore get established. You remember that by 100 days, they were scathing reviews against the government of President Hakainde Hichilema. my dear brother, Dr. Sishua, did a good analysis and failed them. They were failing to take off. I did a similar analysis. Failed to get established. He was squandering an opportunity of a honeymoon, quite a honeymoon window, where no one criticizes you. You have carte blanche space to do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And the president appeared to be squandering that opportunity. Mm-hmm. You saw, and the walking back.
A poor rating could largely be down to the mess that the Patriotic Front left in office on the 12th of August, 2021.
So there's a narrative from the UPND government that say, look, there was so much corruption that was rife that the PF left empty coffers. The PF left a mess, and therefore we are attending to the mess. So give us time. Now, if the PF left empty coffers, where will government get CDF monies giving? It has done 2 releases. Where would government get the money that it has released for pensioners and arrears for suppliers? Where would government get the money for the foreign travels by the head of state if the coffers are empty? Where will government get money for regular salaries that civil servants, in the last 3 years? There was a time period where civil servants were getting late paid. Joking from a civil servant at 39. But 3 years ago, that matter stopped. And consistently, so to date, civil servants are paid on time. If the coffers were empty, you would not undertake any of those achievements. Did the Patriotic Front leave a mess? First, I have to be honest. The state of our economy. We have a $12.9 billion foreign debt to multilateral institutions. We have a similar debt of $10 billion to our local contractors, suppliers, and providers of goods and services. This is something like 187 billion kwacha. We have arrears of in excess of 46 billion. Because if government owes citizens $10 billion, you can't have money in the economy because the cycle of circulation of money will not occur. So government has not paid suppliers, has not paid contractors. So the contractors, what are they doing with their workers? They probably laid them off. What are they doing to all those sites where they are camped? They're probably decamped. We do not have money in the economy because government owes citizens that huge amount, including pensioners. The money that was released yesterday is 2.1. It's just a drop in the ocean. The PF released 2 billion in 2021. This government has released 2.1 billion. And Lorenzo, by the way, just to think very loudly and to take time to speak to our colleagues in government. At the end of the year, the Ministry of Finance, to balance its books and also to meet costs that must have risen, do raise a supplementary budget to Parliament. I'm yet to find out from my colleagues from Parliament how much supplementary budget this government has asked for. And then they do government releases that were not released during the year. So even these releases that are done, like to pensioners and to other, the obligations in government, in many cases, I want to advise this government, are book entries, not actual money. Why do I say so? Because when they release the money this is December, 3 days before the end of the year. Next year, January 1, we start a new cycle of budget. Tell me which government department can spend this money. Tell me which government department, when these monies are released, can execute that money, because you have to close the books by 31st. You might seek an extension of 10 days. Sometimes they give us an extension of 10 days. But what I found as permanent secretary, when I served as permanent secretary, was I actually called it deception. Because Ministry of Finance, obtains this huge supplementary before Parliament goes to recess, before they adjourn Sine Die, and they bring this huge budget, which is a supplementary budget, which is approved, or for releases during the year that were not released. And then they send this money to you. But you have to spend it before the close of the year, because a new cycle, 1st January 2022, the new budget kicks in that was approved. And you realize that there are regulations guiding expenditure from monies and resources from the previous year. You can't expend them in the new year, you know. And you have to, what we call, retire the money or return the money back to Treasury. So this is what I'm warning. Usually the releases that occur in December might excite many people. But government regulations of how to spend that money is extremely difficult. In many cases, the procurement process is between 2 weeks to 3 months. And you have 3 days. So it's not feasible. The process of expending that money again has regulations. You'll be in the new year, and you will require that you follow the process that you've started a new budget. So if you don't done that, you know, politicians, the civil servants are so adept and technocratic in nature, and they give you these big numbers that you never see. You know, they can do a budget, a $10 billion budget, and you can only release maybe up to $4 billion budget. But to the Zambians, they will say the budget was so much, yet the releases were never there. Any civil servant will tell you that what cripples government departments is lack of funding. The funding is never released. In many cases, it's just 10 to 20 or 30% of funding that is released. So yes, the PF released 2 billion kwacha for retirees, and this government has released 2.1 billion kwacha, but the hole is very big. For the Patriotic Front, they had to clear even old things like UBZ, Zamtel, and other areas from the 90s. So we still have to pay our pensioners. The 2.1 billion that has been released is a drop in the ocean. The figure might be exciting to people. My question to you journalists is just ask them, so how much is outstanding for pensioners? Then you'll have a clear indication how a drop in the ocean, the 2.1 billion is, yes.
Okay, we're going for a breather, all right? So you'll be able to catch us on the other side when we return. So we're going to pause transmission for those of you that are catching us via Facebook Live, so that we run into Kobe shows up to about 10:10. And then after that, at about 10:08 or 10:09 to 10:10, we'll reconnect and continue with our discussion. I'll also be reading your comments that you're sending through via Facebook Live as we get to chat through to 11 on this particular program. So join us in a teeny tiny bit when we come back after the news for more interactions with Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba for today's Matters Arising, a discourse on current affairs.
Radio Christian Voice channel is
106.1.
Television station
You've
that
paused as
breaches
well?
the code of professional
Okay.
standards
All
set
right.
by the
So that we can
Independent
flex a
Broadcasting
bit.
Authority, IBA. Here's how.
What's the channel?
Write to the station via
106.1.
post, email, or fax,
Olusaka.
stating what grievances you have against the broadcast. State when the broadcast took place.
and live on your page.
Broadcast
Yes, live
awards.
on,
State your
the
name
FB
and
page.
contact.